Welcome. My name is Olajide Olagunju, and I'm the author of the book, How to Resolve a Conflict, which is the book in front of you. It guides our discussion in this lecture series. This is lecture series titled How to Resolve a Conflict, and this is lecture 28. Now, let's quickly go to the book. I had indicated yesterday that I will be discussing today the 10-step mediation, having concluded discussion on the mediated agreements, their nature, their implication, and the need for the mediator to focus more on the process than on the agreement, because good mediation leads to easily or more easily enforceable agreements. And the reason being that when it is seen as their agreement and they see the benefit for them in implementing the agreement, it becomes easy to enforce for both all parties. So now, like I said yesterday, we'll discuss my input into the amicable, this global attempt to find best practice to resolve disputes. It's amicable approach or approaches to conflict resolution. I time it at the 10-step mediation. That's the chapter 6 of the reading textbook for this lecture series. How to resolve a conflict. And chapter 6 is the 10-step mediation. I begin with a quote at the top of the chapter. I read, quote, "Precept must be upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little." I believe that I got that quotation from the book of Isaiah and the Bible, King James Version, Isaiah 28:10. And why I find that quote interesting is that it speaks to what I think the good mediator must have in mind, that it is a step, you take one step, which leads to another, and every step we take, must be preceded by a foundation, which foundation is the previous step. And so you did the first foundation, the second foundation, the third foundation. So line upon line, here, a little there. Now, and the addition of the various steps that we take, which are called for mediation, the 10 steps. It's the addition of those 10 steps, those solid, that solidity foundation, in 10 steps that constitutes a good mediation. I'll run through them shortly. Let me begin reading from the chapter. I designed the 10-step mediation to make mediation less cumbersome than it had been hitherto, as I have explained in the preface. In this chapter, I want to explain the various steps in some details. However, it is useful to know that the rules of confidentiality and mutual courtesy described already also apply to the 10 steps. This means that what is heard at the mediation cannot be disclosed outside the mediation. Also, what is heard at the caucus or private meeting cannot be disclosed outside the caucus, outside the private meeting, outside the one-on-one meeting between one party and the mediator. Between one party, not the two parties, just one party and the mediator. The rationale for the confidentiality rule is the facilitation of full disclosure so that there could be full resolution and reconciliation. The reason for the mutual courtesy, on the other hand, is to ensure that while fully expressing their feelings, the meeting does not degenerate into physical or verbal abuse. It is important for the mediator to inform the parties of these rules at the beginning and to remind them when the need arises. Additionally, where possible, the mediator ensures that the parties sign a confidentiality agreement. So what I'm saying is that I'm not, as it were, creating a new mediation paradigm. What I've tried to do in the 10-step mediation is to streamline the process, make it more focused so that we can get better results. And I've tested the tested mediation severally because I've had the privilege of consulting for a mediation center. And I noticed that when their mediators, whom are also trained and certified, when they try to, move away from this test, they run into some problems, challenges. And so, and the one that I cannot forget is I was watching the mediation of one of my former students. And I noticed that he tried to not make it precept upon precept. He tried to jump one step, to jump one step, one or two steps. And then he tried to move the parties to an agreement, which is step 10, towards step 10. But he had jumped step 1 and 2. And the parties who had been going along just blew up in his face. So he thought he was moving to step 10, just getting them to begin to agree, and the parties were in step 1. And of course, so that means he had to, of course, go back and take the steps. So what I'm doing in the 10-step mediation is reminding us that it is a process. I actually think it's easier to give a judgment, to supervise a court proceedings or arbitration. I think it's easier not to fight, physical fight, or what governments do, shoot a gun to resolve the conflict. Of course, we know that it does not, it cannot. But I think it's easier to do a non-amicable dispute resolution, if you can call it a resolution. It's easier because what you just do, you just decide. You're deciding, you're forcing your will on others. I mean, in wars, that's what you do. You're forcing your will on others because you have initially was gunpowder. So you go and take over a territory, enslave people to solve your own problem because you had the gunpowder or you had the better skills at, subduing people, suppressing people, oppressing people. But with the mediation, now, of course, with the similar thing probably happening in the court or arbitration, but it's more subtle. But the end is that you're still, I'm an arbitrator, so It's not, I'm not trying to, and don't forget, an arbitrator is a private, essentially a private judge. What I'm saying is that when I'm acting as an arbitrator, or if I were as a judge, the end of the process is my decision. I decide what the parties would do. So I think those processes are easier to, and if you are if you're very good, if you're very smart, very intelligent, you're very intelligent arbitrator, I think you could get away with an error. You could give a wrong judgment, you could give a wrong award as an arbitrator. You know, and find ground for doing it. It's probably more challenging with arbitration, because once the arbitration gives his award, it's binding. You can't appeal. Excuse me, you cannot appeal an award. I mean, it's I've given award before. I've written award before and issued award, published award before. So I cannot frankly say that I'm happy with ending a conflict with an award, because you still have to decide that one party wins, the other party loses, and technically you may be right, but you know that I think we could get better results than judgments and awards. You know, that's my view, and that's why I always, of course, have a bias for mediation. And as I said, I guess one of the earlier lecture, I said that if I have the option, and of course in this book I mentioned, if I have the option, I would encourage parties to look at an amicable approach. And if they cannot settle, well, they cannot settle some aspects of the conflict, they can come back. The ones they're able to settle, of course, becomes part of the resolution. You know, then the ones, one or two, they cannot, they're not able to reach an agreement on, then I could then decide for them as my business as an arbitrator. My preference is always for an amicable approach to conflicts, you know, as much as possible. And I've noticed, you know, from looking at the statistics from one or two mediation centers that I consult for, that and from my reading, that most disputes that go to mediation get resolved. In any case, even in court, I mean, I'm also a lawyer. I mean, it appears to me from my study and experience over the last 3 years that, you know, yeah, we go to court, we rush to court, if I may put it that way. Sometimes we have no choice, you know, but most of those court cases get settled in the end. So why wait till you spend so much money, so much time? Permit me to say, waste so much money, waste so much time, and then come back to an amicable disposition process like mediation or conciliation. You know, and that's why I like what we discussed much later. You know, institutionalizing amicable dispute resolution, and we've done a lot. I mean, as people that have to deal with disputes, I mean, at global levels. I mentioned in the last lecture, in lecture 27, the UNCITRAL Accord. You know, part of the UNCITRAL rules is strong conciliation rules, which are adapted as mediation rules, modern mediation rules, in Appendix 2, Appendix B, forgive me, of the book that we're using as textbook for this lecture. Excuse me, lecture series. It's the the conciliation or mediation rules, is holistic and help parties to, actually, new mediators, so just follow it and then to ensure that they get as good a resolution as possible. Of course, what I've tried to do in the tested mediation is to crunch those rules, into probably more simpler forms, so that it's easier for you to, so you be assured that you have taken all the steps that you need to take, to arrive at a truly amicable settlement. So the point I'm trying to make is that you need more skill. And for the same dispute, you need more skill as a mediator, especially if you bring the disputes to mediation earlier. You need more skills. It's more tricky, technical to do a mediation than to write a judgment, give an award. I mean, like I said, it's easier to tell people what to do than to help them, rather than to help them decide what to do. So they become their own judges, as it were, and they become their own arbitrators. Individual judges, individual arbitrators, and joint judges and arbitrators. So that at the end of the day, they make the decision, which we call a mediated agreement. They make a decision for themselves. Getting that to happen, I think it's more, the man's more skill than telling them as a judge arbitrator, this is what you're going to do, deciding for them. I think that we might stop here for today, and then we'll continue the discussion of the tested mediation tomorrow. Please remember to write your comments, and please remember to subscribe to this lecture series as you are listening to the lectures. And then I will see you in the next lecture, lecture 29. Thank you again for joining. I'm very grateful.